He wanted to control, I wanted to control. So we butted heads because of that.
You know Smoke on the Water. You've heard that legendary riff 1,000 times at every guitar center on earth. Shredding guitar. We're talking about the riff shredding, ego-clashing, lineup-flipping saga of none other than Deep Purple. But behind the amps and anthems lies a rock and roll soap opera so juicy it could have run for 12 seasons. So grab your air guitar and prepare to dive into the drama, the power, the glory, and the sheer rock and roll madness of the one, the only Deep Purple. So picture this. It's 1968 in London. While everyone else was tripping on flower power, 5 guys decided to melt faces instead. Welcome to the chaotic birth of Deep Purple, originally called Roundabout. Thank Ritchie Blackmore and his grandma's favorite song for the name change, All Sweet. Until they cranked the amps to earthquake levels and literally made it into the Guinness Book of World Records as the loudest band on the planet.
Guinness Book of Records, they said that we were the loudest band in the world.
The greatest rock and roll band of all time.
And the band just come alive. It's just like a different band to anything that Purple have done before.
Now let's talk about the OG lineup, the Mark I gang.
Ian Pace is jamming away drumming, and John's playing in his Hammond organ, and Richie's following him.
Ritchie Blackmore, the guitar wizard, Rod Evans, the smooth vocalist, John Lord, the keyboard genius, Nick Simper, the bassist, and Ian Pace, the drummer. At first, Deep Purple's sound was a trippy cocktail of psychedelic and progressive rock. Think lava lamps and epic keyboard solos. Their first taste of fame? A bold, funky cover of Hush, which hit number 4 on the Billboard charts. But don't be fooled. The seeds of band beef were already planted. John Lord wanted classical art rock magic. Ritchie Blackmore wanted raw, aggressive rock. That clash, it was just the beginning of decades of glorious dysfunction. So yeah, before they were melting speakers and fighting over solos, these guys were just a chaotic mix of genius, trauma, and wild ambition. The perfect ingredients for one of the most dramatic bands in rock history.
It's not much fun when you've shifted millions and millions of records around the world and we were still on basic wages.
And folks, this is only the beginning. When Deep Purple decided to crank things up, they kicked out their original singer and bassist, Rod Evans, and Nick Simper.
Shortly after that, other plans were made for my future and I was moved sideways out of the band.
Well, Nicky wasn't constructive, he didn't have any ideas, and he was an average bass player, so he had to go.
Replacing them with Ian Gillan and Roger Glover, launching the legendary Mark II era. That lineup dominated the charts with hits like Smoke on the Water, earning them the title of #1 album artist in America in 1973. But behind the scenes, total meltdown. Gillan burned out, turned to heavy drinking, and eventually quit. Glover followed.
We were successful in financial terms, but we weren't particularly successful at that point in our relationships with each other. I think we probably just got tired of each other.
In came David Coverdale and Glenn Hughes for Mark III stage. But the band's shift to funkier sounds drove Ritchie Blackmore to rage quit and start Rainbow. Fast forward to 1984. The classic Mark II lineup reunited for a major comeback with Perfect Strangers.
We found this need for each other musically, and we found that we could perform again and make good music. That was the real reason.
But old tensions flared again.
In 84, you went back to Purple and it all went wrong. And then... Eventually, yeah.
Gillan was fired in 89 over drinking issues, replaced by Joe Lynn Turner. Gillan returned in 92, prompting Blackmore's final dramatic exit, complete with the passport-ripping tantrum.
I just felt that the band was becoming too bluesy, not bluesy, but kind of funky, and I don't like funky soul music.
Joe Satriani and later Steve Morse took over on guitar, stabilizing the band for years. John Lord retired in 2002, replaced by Don Airey. Morse left in 2022 to care for his wife, and Simon McBride stepped in. Between 1968 and now, Deep Purple has had 14 different lineup changes. 14! That's more than the average number of Spider-Man. Deep Purple's members were tangled in personal chaos.
Socially, We had nothing. We were totally broke. And so...
Totally broke.
Totally.
Ian Gillan battled booze, burnout, and hepatitis, even collapsing on tour. He left the band, lost money on a hotel venture, and later lost his wife Braun. Ritchie Blackmore, the band's brilliant but moody guitarist, had multiple wives, a wild streak, like he once ripped his passport to dodge a tour, and serious health issues like heart problems and arthritis.
We must have toured probably 11 months in the year, and we had to make LPs at the same time. So I became sick with hepatitis.
Jon Lord walked away in 2002 to pursue classical music, while Roger Glover, the quiet backbone, once had to front the band himself. He also dreamed up Smoke on the Water. Ian Paice stayed the longest, but suffered a mini stroke in 2016, causing him to miss his first show ever. And Tommy Bolin, a tragic case. Drug addiction derailed his run, and he died of an overdose just months after the band split.
Any dependency he had on drugs probably stemmed from that. He might have used drugs as a form of escape.
And let's not forget their management issues.
But then you have those ugly managers manipulating and taking advantage of that situation and making people sign contracts that they don't really understand.
Beneath the spotlight, Deep Purple lived a roller coaster of health scares, personal losses, and rock star chaos, proving the real drama wasn't just on stage. And if you think Deep Purple was all about music, think again. They had a full-blown soap opera of feuds, lawsuits, and outlandish behavior that makes any reality show look tame. First, rock's pettiest feud? This was no friendly band banter, this was war. Ian Gillan and Ritchie Blackmore were like oil and fire. Gillan wrote Smooth Dancer just to roast Blackmore's Black Suede obsession. Blackmore, he threw pasta in Gillan's face, pulled his chair mid-stage fall, and later tore up his passport in a power play. Their so-called pranks were borderline assaults. Gillan summed it up best after Blackmore quit for good in '93.
Fortunately, Ritchie Blackmore walked out. The sun shone again, and we all said, let's give it one more shot. So yes, we were grateful.
The rain stopped and the sun came out. Ouch, that's nasty. Rod Evans, the band's original singer, thought it was a good idea to tour with a fake Deep Purple in 1980. Spoiler, it wasn't. He was the only original member and got duped by shady promoters, landing himself a massive lawsuit. The real Deep Purple came for blood and royalties. Evans lost big, nearly $700K and his future royalties. Lesson: don't mess with the Purple name.
Some respect on my name.
Fast forward to 2015, and Ritchie Blackmore came back swinging. This time in court, he sued for £750,000, claiming he was underpaid for hits like Smoke on the Water. Apparently, the other guys cashed in on a previous deal without him. Ugh. And let's not forget Blackmore once smashed Roger Glover's door with an axe after claiming a seance took over his senses. Psycho? Deep Purple's story isn't just music history. It's pure rock and roll gossip gold. Feuds, lawsuits, ghostly seances. These legends weren't just playing power chords. They were living a high-voltage, no-holds-barred rock opera. Deep Purple brought the drama, but guess what? These rock gods have surprisingly huge hearts. Ian Gillan isn't just the guy who roasted Ritchie Blackmore in lyrics, he's also a full-on humanitarian. Teaming up with Tony Iommi, he formed Who Cares, a charity supergroup that raised funds to rebuild a music school in quake-hit Armenia. Armenia was so grateful, they gave him the Order of Honor in 2009. Gillan even calls it his spiritual homeland. Oh, and he once played charity soccer with George Best, probably on tape somewhere in a dusty drawer. Ritchie Blackmore, the moody maestro of Deep Purple, is all about animal rescue these days. Through his band Blackmore's Night with wife Candace, he's a champion for furry friends on Long Island. From supporting local shelters to hosting adoption events at concerts, he's basically a medieval dress rock star version of the Dog Whisperer. He also signed a rare LP for music support, helping peers struggling with addiction and mental health. Even in passing, Jon Lord's giving spirit lives on. He worked with the Sunflower Jam Healing Trust, a charity that funds complimentary therapists and cancer wards, co-founded by Ian Paice's wife, who, fun fact, is the twin sister of John's wife. He also joined Gillan for the Armenia project, proving he was always down to give back. Ian Paice and his wife Jackie founded the Sunflower Jam, a UK charity funding spiritual healers in NHS cancer wards. It all started after Case witnessed a healing session that deeply moved him. Sure, it's ruffled some feathers in the science crowd, but the mission to help suffering patients is pure rock and roll compassion. Roger Glover didn't just bring the bass, he brought the brush.
This rock vet auctioned his personal artworks to raise money for charity and also recorded Lucy's song to benefit the Linda McCartney Cancer Center, a rocker and a Renaissance man. So behind the amps and antics, these rockers are real-life do-gooders. Whether it's healing hearts, helping animals, or painting for a cause, they've proven that even the loudest legends can have the softest souls. Now, who says rock legends have to retire? Not Deep Purple. Against every odd in the rock and roll rulebook, these ageless icons are still touring, recording, and crushing it on stage, with no signs of slowing down. Yes, really. Deep Purple dropped their 23rd studio album, Equals One, in July 2024, with a brand new guitarist. Simon McBride officially joined the crew in 2022 after Steve Morris stepped down, and the band didn't miss a beat.
Simon's been amazing. He's taken over from Steve Morse, and he's changed things quite a lot.
With Gillan, Glover, Pace, Irie, and McBride locked in, they're now blazing across the world on the Equals One More Time tour alongside prog legends, yes. And get this, these guys are pushing 80 years old and still rocking harder than bands born in the iPhone era.
Totally organic. There is no artificial stimulus. It's like, yeah, you gotta eat, and this is how we do it.
Ian Pace remains the band's only OG member to stick around since day one. Talk about commitment. While Gillan and Glover continue to crank out bangers like it's still 1972. Their ability to evolve with fresh talent and still make killer new music, total legend status. Deep Purple isn't just a band, they're a movement that refuses to age, fade, or fizzle. With new albums, evolving lineups, and global tours in 2025, they're proving that legends don't retire, they reinvent. They've sold over 100 million records, played to packed arenas for decades, and practically invented the phrase "stadium rock gods." But when it comes to Deep Purple's bank accounts, not all rock legends are created equal. Frontman Ian Gillan and drummer Ian Case are tied at the top at cool $40 million each. Roger Glover is sitting pretty at $35 million. But Richie Blackmore, despite his legendary status, is estimated at only $16 million. Keyboard wizard Don Airey and former guitar hero Steve Morris each sit around $8 million. Respectable? Sure. The late and great John Lord may be gone, but his contributions to rock and classical music made him a millionaire in his own right. At the time of his passing, his estate was worth $2.6 million and was on the market for $11.7 million. Nice. Being in Deep Purple made most of these guys rich, but how rich depended on more than just talent. Think songwriting credits, business brains, solo ventures, and royalty wrangling. It's a behind-the-scenes money story worthy of a VH1 special. From smashed guitars and backstage brawls, Deep Purple isn't just a band. They're a full-blown rock and roll soap opera. These legends have done it all, and they're still going strong into their 70s and 80s. They have proven that rock immortality isn't just about the music, it's about the madness, the money, the mayhem, and maybe a little bit of healing too. So the next time you hear that iconic Smoke on the Water riff, remember, behind every note is a scandal worth spilling.